Right now, in this very moment, you are fighting against the most powerful force in the universe. You are wrestling with life itself, pushing against doors that are meant to open inward, swimming upstream when the current wants to carry you exactly where you need to go. You have been taught to struggle, to force, to make things happen through sheer willpower and determination. But what if I told you that every miracle you have ever witnessed happened not because someone fought harder, but because they finally stopped fighting and allowed what was meant to be to simply unfold? The greatest tragedy of human existence is not that we fail to achieve our dreams, but that we exhaust ourselves trying to control outcomes that were never ours to control in the first place. We grip so tightly to our plans, our expectations, our version of how things should be, that we squeeze the very life out of the possibilities that are trying to reach us. We become like a person drowning who fights so hard against the water that they forget they know how to float. Every single day, miracles are attempting to make their way into your life. They are knocking at your door, sending you signs, creating opportunities, orchestrating coincidences that would take your breath away if you were paying attention. But you are too busy being busy, too occupied with your resistance, too focused on forcing square pegs into round holes to notice that life is trying to hand you exactly what you need. Resistance is the invisible barrier between you and everything you desire. It shows up as anxiety when you think about change. It appears as that voice in your head that says you are not ready, not worthy, not smart enough, not talented enough. It manifests as the need to control every detail, to have a guarantee before you take a step, to know the entire staircase before you are willing to take the first step. But here is what resistance really is. It is fear dressed up as practicality. It is doubt wearing the mask of wisdom. It is your ego's desperate attempt to keep you small and safe in a world that requires you to grow and risk in order to truly live. Your ego has convinced you that letting go means giving up, that surrender means defeat, that allowing means being passive. Nothing could be further from the truth. Letting go is not giving up. Letting go is giving in to the intelligence that created the seasons, that moves the tides, that beats your heart without your conscious effort. Letting go is recognizing that there is a force in this universe that knows more about what you need than your limited human perspective ever could. Letting go is trading your small plans for the universe's grand design. When you stop resisting, something magical happens. The energy you were using to fight against life becomes available for creating with life. The tension in your shoulders releases. The knot in your stomach dissolves. The fog in your mind clears. You begin to see opportunities that were always there but were invisible to your stressed and struggling consciousness. Think about the times in your life when things flowed effortlessly. Think about the moments when everything seemed to fall into place without your forcing it. Think about the people who came into your life at exactly the right time, the job opportunities that appeared out of nowhere, the solutions that presented themselves just when you had given up trying to figure them out. These were not accidents. These were miracles that became possible because for that moment you stopped pushing and started allowing. The universe operates on a principle that most people never learn. It gives you what you are, not what you want. If you are someone who believes life is hard, life will show up as hard for you. If you are someone who believes you must struggle to succeed, struggle will be your constant companion. If you are someone who believes that good things only come to other people, you will spend your life watching other people receive what you desire. But if you become someone who trusts, who allows, who knows that you are supported by forces you cannot see but can certainly feel, then life begins to support you in ways that will astound you. You stop being a victim of circumstances and become a partner with the creative force of the universe. This does not mean you become passive or lazy. This does not mean you stop taking action or setting goals. This means you learn the difference between inspired action and desperate action. Inspired action feels light and energizing. It comes from a place of knowing rather than hoping. It flows from you naturally rather than being forced by your willpower. Desperate action feels heavy and draining. It comes from a place of fear and scarcity. It requires you to push and strain and exhaust yourself to make tiny increments of progress. When you are in alignment with your true nature, when you have released resistance and opened to the flow of life, your actions become effortless expressions of who you are rather than frantic attempts to become who you think you should be. You stop trying to swim upstream and start floating downstream, using your energy to navigate rather than to fight the current. The resistance in your life shows up in many forms. It shows up as the perfectionism that prevents you from starting because you cannot guarantee the outcome will be flawless. It shows up as the need to know how everything will work out before you are willing to take the first step. It shows up as the belief that you must earn love, success, happiness, and peace, rather than accepting that these are your natural birthright. It shows up as the voice that says you are not ready, you do not have enough experience, you do not have the right credentials, you do not have enough money, you do not have enough time. It shows up as the need to have everyone approve of your choices before you are willing to make them. It shows up as the fear of what other people will think, what other people will say, how other people will judge you. But here is the truth that resistance does not want you to know. You were not born to live a small, safe, predictable life. You were not born to spend your days wondering what if and wishing things were different. You were not born to play it safe and hope that somehow, someday, the right moment will arrive and you will finally be ready to live the life you really want. You were born as a unique expression of the creative force of the universe. You were born with gifts and talents and perspectives that no one else possesses. You were born to contribute something to this world that only you can contribute. You were born to experience joy and love and fulfillment, not as rare treats, but as the natural condition of a life lived in harmony with your true nature. The miracles that are waiting for you cannot reach you as long as you are closed off by resistance. They cannot get through the walls of fear you have built around your heart. They cannot penetrate the armor of skepticism you wear to protect yourself from disappointment. They cannot find you when you are hiding behind excuses and justifications and reasons why now is not the right time. But the moment you soften, the moment you open, the moment you say yes to life instead of maybe or not yet or what if, the floodgates open and miracles begin to flow, not because you deserve them, but because they are the natural result of being in alignment with the way the universe actually works. You have been programmed to believe that life is difficult, that success requires sacrifice, that you must choose between being happy and being successful, between following your dreams and being responsible, between living authentically and being accepted by others. These are false choices, created by a world that has forgotten its connection to the source of all creativity and abundance. The truth is that when you are living from your authentic self, when you are expressing your true nature, when you are doing what brings you alive, you automatically contribute to the world in ways that create value for others. You do not have to choose between serving yourself and serving others, because when you are being who you really are, serving others becomes a natural expression of who you are. When you stop resisting who you are and start allowing yourself to be who you came here to be, work stops feeling like work. Relationships stop feeling like compromises. Life stops feeling like something you have to endure and starts feeling like something you get to experience. The resistance that keeps you stuck often masquerades as being realistic or practical. It tells you that dreams are for children, that you need to grow up and face reality, that wanting more is selfish or unrealistic. But what if the reality you have been taught to accept is actually the illusion? And the dreams in your heart are glimpses of a much larger reality that is available to you. What if the limitations you believe are real are actually just beliefs that can be changed? What if the obstacles you think are in your way are actually stepping stones that are perfectly placed to help you grow into the person you need to become to receive what you are asking for? Every person who has ever accomplished anything meaningful, who has ever made a significant contribution to the world, who has ever lived a life that mattered, had to learn to let go of the need to control outcomes and trust that their sincere efforts would be supported by forces beyond their understanding. They had to learn to listen to the whispers of their intuition above the shouts of their fears. They had to learn to follow their excitement even when they could not see where it was leading. They had to learn to take action from a place of knowing rather than hoping, from a place of trust rather than desperation. The miracle of letting go is that it does not require you to understand how things will work out. It does not require you to have a plan for every contingency. It does not require you to be perfect or ready or qualified. It only requires you to be willing to trust that there is an intelligence in the universe that is far greater than your individual intelligence. Willing to believe that this intelligence is benevolent and wants to support you in living your highest and best life. Willing to act from this place of trust, even when your past experience suggests that trust is dangerous. Every time you choose trust over fear, every time you choose to allow rather than control, every time you choose to flow with life rather than fight against it, you create an opening for miracles. You create space for possibilities you never could have planned or predicted or forced into existence. The people in your life who seem to live charmed lives, who seem to have opportunities fall into their laps, who seem to be in the right place at the right time more often than statistics would suggest, are not luckier than you. They have simply learned to live with less resistance. They have learned to say yes to life more often than they say no. They have learned to trust the process, even when they cannot see the outcome. You can learn this too. You can train yourself to notice when you are in resistance and choose to soften instead. You can practice releasing your grip on how you think things should happen and open to how they want to happen. You can experiment with taking inspired action instead of forced action and notice the difference in how it feels and what it creates. The voice in your head that tells you this is too simple, too good to be true, too naive, is the voice of resistance. It is the voice that wants to keep you stuck in struggle because struggle feels familiar and familiar feels safe. But safe is not why you are here. You are here to grow, to expand, to become more than you have ever been before. The universe is conspiring in your favor, but you have to stop fighting against the conspiracy. You have to stop insisting on your version of how things should work and start cooperating with how they actually do work. You have to stop trying to push the river and start learning to navigate the current. When you release resistance, you do not become passive or weak. You become aligned with the most powerful force in the universe, which is the creative force that brings all things into being. You become a co-creator rather than a victim. You become a partner with life rather than someone who is constantly at odds with life. The miracles that are waiting for you are not rewards for being good or punishments for being bad. They are natural outcomes of being in harmony with the way the universe operates. They are what happens when you stop working against the laws of life and start working with them. Every spiritual tradition, every wisdom teaching, every person who has ever found lasting peace and fulfillment has discovered this same truth in different words. They have learned to surrender the illusion of control and trust the reality of support. They have learned to let go and let life live through them instead of trying to live in spite of life. This is not a philosophy or a belief system. This is a practical approach to living that you can test in your own experience. Start small. Notice where you are forcing, where you are struggling, where you are trying to make something happen through willpower alone. In those moments, take a breath and ask yourself what it would feel like to soften around this situation. What would it feel like to trust that there might be another way, an easier way, a way that flows instead of fights? The answer will come not as a thought, but as a feeling. It will come as a sense of relief, a loosening of tension, a feeling of space opening up where before there was constriction. This is what letting go feels like. This is what allowing feels like. This is the beginning of miracles. As you practice this letting go, you will begin to notice synchronicities. You will begin to see connections and opportunities that you were blind to when you were in resistance. You will begin to meet people who have exactly what you need or who need exactly what you have to offer. You will begin to find yourself in the right place at the right time with increasing frequency. These are not accidents or coincidences. These are the natural result of being in alignment with the flow of life. When you stop swimming upstream, the current carries you to exactly where you need to be. When you stop pushing against doors, you notice which ones are already open. When you stop trying to force outcomes, you begin to receive outcomes that are far better than anything you could have forced. The greatest miracle is not getting what you want. The greatest miracle is wanting what you get. It is recognizing that what shows up in your life, even when it does not match your expectations, is exactly what you need for your growth, your learning, your evolution into the person you came here to become. This does not mean you become passive or accept things that are harmful or unhealthy. This means you learn to distinguish between what you can control and what you cannot control, and you put your energy into what you can actually influence while releasing your attachment to what is beyond your power. You can control your thoughts, your words, your actions, your responses. You cannot control other people's thoughts, words, actions, or responses. You can control your effort, your attitude, your willingness to learn and grow. You cannot control outcomes, timing, or other people's reactions to your efforts. When you focus your energy on what you can control and release your attachment to what you cannot control, you become incredibly powerful. Not powerful in the sense of being able to force things to happen, but powerful in the sense of being unshakable, regardless of what happens. You become someone who can maintain their center in any storm, who can find opportunity in any challenge, who can create meaning from any experience. This is the power that comes from letting go. This is the strength that comes from surrender. This is the peace that comes from trusting that you are exactly where you need to be, learning exactly what you need to learn, becoming exactly who you need to become. The resistance in your life is not your enemy, it is your teacher. It shows you where you are still trying to control what cannot be controlled. It shows you where you are still believing that your way is the only way. It shows you where you are still operating from fear instead of love, from scarcity instead of abundance, from separation instead of connection. When resistance shows up, instead of fighting it or judging yourself for having it, you can thank it for the information it is providing and then choose a different response. You can choose to soften instead of harden, to open instead of close, to trust instead of doubt. The miracle of letting go is not that everything becomes easy. The miracle is that you become someone who can handle whatever comes with grace and wisdom and strength. You become someone who sees challenges as opportunities for growth rather than problems to be avoided. You become someone who trusts the process of life even when the process is uncomfortable or uncertain. Every great teacher, every wise person, every individual who has made a lasting contribution to the world has had to learn this lesson. They have had to learn to work with life instead of against it. They have had to learn to receive guidance instead of relying solely on their own limited perspective. They have had to learn to act from inspiration instead of desperation. You are no different from them. You have access to the same source of wisdom and guidance that they had. You have the same capacity for growth and transformation that they had. You have the same potential for creating a life of meaning and contribution that they had. The only difference is that they learned to let go of what was blocking their connection to this source. And you can learn this too. The first step is recognizing that resistance is optional. You have been conditioned to believe that struggle is necessary, that effort must feel difficult, that progress requires pain. But this is not true. These beliefs are what create the very resistance that makes life feel hard. When you change your beliefs about what is possible, what is necessary, and what you deserve, you change your experience of life. When you stop believing that you have to earn love and start knowing that you are love, relationships become easier. When you stop believing that you have to prove your worth and start knowing that you are inherently valuable, work becomes more fulfilling. When you stop believing that happiness is a reward for good behavior and start knowing that joy is your natural state, Life becomes a celebration instead of an endurance test. The miracles that begin when you stop resisting and let go are not dramatic supernatural events, although those may occur as well. The real miracles are the daily experiences of ease where you expected difficulty, of clarity where you expected confusion, of support where you expected to struggle alone, of opportunities appearing where you thought there were only obstacles. The real miracle is becoming someone who wakes up each day excited about what might unfold rather than worried about what might go wrong. The real miracle is becoming someone who sees setbacks as setups for comebacks, who sees endings as beginnings, who sees problems as opportunities for creative solutions. The real miracle is becoming someone who knows, without a doubt, that they are supported by a universe that wants them to succeed, that is conspiring to bring them everything they need to live their purpose and express their gifts and experience the joy that is their birthright. This knowing does not come from thinking or reasoning or analyzing. This knowing comes from letting go of the thoughts and reasonings and analysis that keep you separate from the truth of who you are and what is possible for you. This knowing comes from surrendering the mind that argues for your limitations and opening to the wisdom that knows no limits. Right now, in this moment, miracles are lining up at the door of your consciousness, waiting for you to stop resisting long enough to let them in. They are waiting for you to stop insisting that you know better than life how your story should unfold. They are waiting for you to trade your small plans for the universe's grand design. The choice is yours. You can continue to push and force and struggle and exhaust yourself trying to make life conform to your expectations. Or you can release your grip, soften your stance, open your heart, and allow the miracles that are already yours to finally reach you. The universe is not testing you. The universe is supporting you. Life is not happening to you. Life is happening for you. Every experience, every challenge, every opportunity is perfectly designed to help you remember who you really are and why you really came here. When you remember this truth and live from this truth, resistance becomes impossible because you are no longer fighting against life. You are dancing with life. You are co-creating with life. You are letting life live through you in the most beautiful and miraculous ways. This is when miracles begin. This is when life becomes the adventure it was meant to be. This is when you become who you came here to be. Your relationship with time changes when you stop resisting. Instead of feeling like time is your enemy, always running out when you need it most, time becomes your ally. You find yourself having exactly the right amount of time for what truly matters. You stop rushing through your days and start moving through them with purpose and presence. The frantic energy of someone who believes they must hurry to catch up with life transforms into the calm confidence of someone who knows they are exactly on schedule for their soul's appointment with destiny. Money flows differently when resistance dissolves. Instead of chasing financial security through jobs that drain your spirit, you find that abundance comes through expressing your authentic gifts. The energy you once spent worrying about money becomes available for creating value in the world. You stop seeing money as scarce and start recognizing it as a natural byproduct of serving others from your heart. The fear-based decisions that once kept you trapped in unsatisfying situations give way to choices made from love and trust in your ability to create whatever you need. Your body responds to this shift in profound ways. The chronic tension that resistance creates in your muscles begins to release. Your breathing becomes fuller and more natural. Sleep comes easier because your mind is not constantly racing with worries about controlling tomorrow. Your immune system strengthens because you are no longer in a constant state of stress and vigilance. Physical ailments that seemed mysterious or stubborn often begin to heal when the mental and emotional resistance that was feeding them dissolves. The way you communicate transforms when you release the need to defend your position or prove your point. Conversations become opportunities for connection rather than competitions to be won. You find yourself listening more and talking less, yet somehow your words carry more weight and impact. People are drawn to the peaceful energy you radiate when you are not constantly pushing against what is. Your presence becomes a gift to others because you are no longer trying to get something from them, but are simply offering who you are. Creativity explodes when resistance gets out of the way. The voice in your head that used to critique every idea before you could fully form it becomes quiet. You find yourself having insights and inspirations that seem to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Projects that you struggled with for months suddenly resolve themselves in moments of clarity. You stop trying to force inspiration and start creating the conditions where inspiration naturally arises. Play returns to your work, and work begins to feel like play. For children, if you have them, notice this change in you immediately. Children are naturally attuned to the energy of resistance because they have not yet learned to accept it as normal. When you stop fighting against life, they feel safer to be themselves around you. They stop walking on eggshells and start sharing their authentic thoughts and feelings. Your relationship with them deepens because you are no longer trying to control their experience, but are simply supporting them in having their own experience. Parents and family members may initially be confused by your transformation. They may interpret your newfound peace as indifference or your trust in life as irresponsibility. Some may try to pull you back into old patterns of worry and control because your change threatens their belief that these patterns are necessary. This is when you get to practice letting go on an even more personal level, allowing them to have their reactions without taking responsibility for changing their minds or making them comfortable with your growth. The spiritual dimension of your life expands naturally when resistance diminishes. You do not need to adopt new religious beliefs or practices, although you may find yourself drawn to explore traditions that previously held no interest for you. What happens is that you begin to feel your connection to something larger than yourself, something that has always been there, but was obscured by the noise of resistance. Prayer becomes less about asking for things to be different and more about expressing gratitude for what is. Meditation becomes less about trying to quiet your mind and more about resting in the quietness that is your true nature. You begin to see patterns in your life that were invisible when you were caught up in resistance. You recognize how every seeming setback prepared you for a breakthrough that could not have happened any other way. You see how people who hurt you actually helped you discover your strength. You understand how losing what you thought you needed created space for receiving what you actually needed. Your entire life story reorganizes itself around this new perspective, and what once looked like a series of random events reveals itself as a perfectly orchestrated curriculum for your awakening. The fear of death, which underlies so much human resistance, begins to lose its grip on you. Not because you become reckless or careless with your life, but because you start to understand that who you really are cannot be destroyed by the changing of forms. You realize that you have been so busy trying to protect this temporary physical experience that you have been missing the eternal spiritual experience that is your true identity. This does not make you want to leave your body, but it does free you from the desperate clinging that makes every change feel like a threat. Service to others becomes effortless when you are no longer serving from obligation or guilt, but from the overflow of your own fulfillment. You find that you naturally want to share what you have learned, not because you think others need fixing, but because joy shared is joy multiplied. Your giving becomes unconditional because you are no longer giving in order to get something back, but because generosity is your natural expression when you know there is enough for everyone. The seasons of your life begin to make sense in a way they never did before. You understand that there are times for planting and times for harvesting, times for action and times for rest, times for solitude and times for community. You stop trying to force spring to come in winter or to make summer last forever. You learn to align yourself with the natural rhythms of expansion and contraction that govern all of life, including your own growth and evolution. Your relationship with aging changes completely. Instead of seeing each birthday as a step closer to decline and death, you begin to see each year as an opportunity to become more of who you really are. The wisdom you gain from your experiences becomes more valuable to you than the physical stamina you may lose. You realize that youth spent in resistance and struggle is far less attractive than maturity lived in flow and acceptance. You become someone who grows more beautiful with age because beauty, you understand, radiates from the inside out. The legacy you want to leave shifts from external achievements to the energy you brought to every encounter. You realize that the most important question is not what you accomplished, but who you became in the process of living. You understand that your influence on the world happens not through what you do, but through who you are, and that the highest contribution you can make is to be a living example of what is possible when a human being learns to live without resistance. This transformation does not happen overnight, and it does not happen once and then remain permanent without attention. Learning to let go is a practice that deepens over time. There will be moments when you catch yourself gripping tightly again, when old patterns of resistance resurface, especially during times of change or uncertainty. This is not failure, this is human. The difference is that now you notice resistance when it arises, and you have tools for releasing it before it takes over your entire experience. The miracle is not that you never feel resistance again. The miracle is that resistance no longer rules your life. You become someone who can feel fear and act from love anyway. You become someone who can face uncertainty with curiosity rather than panic. You become someone who can experience loss without losing your connection to the abundance that is always available. You become someone who can encounter change as an adventure rather than a threat. Every day becomes a new opportunity to choose flow over force, trust over control, love over fear. Every interaction becomes a chance to practice letting go of the need to be right in favor of being kind. Every challenge becomes an invitation to grow in your capacity to remain centered regardless of external circumstances. Every moment becomes a gateway to the miracle of being fully alive in a universe that is conspiring to support your highest good.